It's generally easy to spot a hard drug when a project has just been shut down immediately after mint and the founders have run off with the money. It's harder but still possible to recognize so-called soft drugs, where the founders have done the same thing but slower while pretending to keep working. What about unintentional rugs though, where even the founders don't understand that they're rugging their own project? Keep watching for 5 key signs that point to an unintentional rug. Hi everyone, my name is Daniel Tanner, aka Swombat, and in these videos I use my 15 years of experience as a successful entrepreneur working with hundreds of other tech startup founders to bring some clarity to Web3 and NFTs so we can all make better investment decisions. NFTs are a very exciting space, but often because of how new it is, people tend to forget all the hard-earned lessons from tech startups and make avoidable mistakes. As our heroic Zach XBT put it, when a project is grossly negligent, it's fair to call that a rug. I believe this is true even if the founders don't actually realize they're rugging. Here's an analogy from the real world. Let's say I had an idea that I'm going to build a robot that can tidy up your house for you. I ask a few random people and they all say, yeah, that'd be neat I guess. I'm going to need money to get this off the ground. I find some cool stock footage of humanoid robots from science fiction movies, make a fun video, put together a kick-ass presentation, and then go and fundraise for my amazing robot project. Some people tell me it can't be done, that robotics is not advanced enough to deliver that product. But they're just doubters and fudders, who cares about them? Because my pitch is really slick and there is demand for such a robot, I managed to raise a couple of $1 million for it. Fantastic, I've succeeded. I pay myself a fat salary, hire some interns, and set out on phase 2. Put together some even better marketing materials to raise the next round of funding. Maybe I even managed to find another pile of money. Maybe I don't. But somewhere along this journey, eventually the hard brick wall of reality will smack this project in the face. Robotics is in fact not advanced enough to create such a product. It doesn't matter how much money I throw at it. It's going to take years or maybe even decades and billions of dollars for the world's largest and richest companies to build anything resembling a consumer-friendly humanoid robot, let alone one that can hang out in your house and fold your underwear for you. My project was dead in the water right from the start. Some people told me, but I ignored them. Enough people were foolish enough to give me some money that I carried on. Now all this money has been wasted. Well, not entirely wasted. After all, I got to buy a new house and a car with various payouts, and I guess I learned a lot along the way. I'm now ready for my next venture, which will of course be just as ambitious. After all, it worked the first time in a way. Now, in this example, I'm not absolving the investors who backed this impractical idea from any responsibility. They should have thought things through better before putting in their money. But just because investors made a mistake doesn't mean the founders are free of responsibility. As a founder, it is part of your job to make reasonable efforts to make sure the business you're trying to build has some vaguely reasonable chance of success. This is why founders talk to subject matter experts, or even are subject matter experts themselves, before they start a business in a given field. This is why founders do financial modeling to make sure the business has at least a vague chance of becoming profitable. This is why founders go on pitch competitions and get grilled by investors who will find the holes in their pitch. If a founder is just pursuing unrealistic, harebrained ideas over and over, raising and wasting large sums of money along the way, they are also guilty of something. It might be hard to convince them of this, since their revenue depends on it, but as investors, it's important to recognize those patterns so as not to invest in them. This all seems quite obvious in the regular startup world, but of course in NFT land, all of that stuff gets ignored. So we get projects with zero chance of success. Multiply that by an abundance of uneducated investors who don't know how to ask the right questions, and a general vibe that asking tough questions about a project is fudding, and it's a recipe for never-ending unintentional rugs. Until we learn how to recognize them and stop giving them money. So how can we detect those before investing in them? The first warning sign is simply when the founders don't even recognize that they're running a business. It's bad enough if they haven't figured it out by themselves, but sometimes even when asked direct questions about how their business will operate, they shrug these off by declaring that there's something different than a business, so they don't need to answer questions that would normally apply to a business. Given that many of the so-called blue chip projects that people declared not a business went on to raise VC funding, it's fairly obvious there's a business involved. If the founders are unwilling to even acknowledge this basic reality, this is a big warning sign that they are, intentionally or not, going to rug the project. The first thing any accountant will explain to a newly minted business owner is that they are not their business. This means your business has to file as a separate entity with its own accounts, taxes, declarations, and so on. Any transfers between your business bank account and your personal bank account are either investments or loans or salary or dividends, and whatever they are, they can't happen without proper paperwork documenting their tax implications. Because NFT PFP projects emerged first as an offshoot of art projects, many founders didn't get the memo. On top of that, many scammers happily embraced and amplified that pattern because it enabled them to more easily run off with the money. In the startup world, there's a truism that raising funding is not a marker of success. It's actually taking on further obligation. You now need to deliver even more to make a successful business. If founders think that mint day is payday and they pay themselves large success bonuses, or even if they just help themselves to the project funds without proper accounting, that's another red flag. The third sign can be quite subjective, but think back to the robot investment analogy. Many founders set out to build stuff that seems impossible to some people, but the more difficult it seems, the more expert knowledge they should have. Take a founder with basically no experience of building games. If they pitch that they're going to build a AAA quality game with a big budget, it's just not a realistic pitch. Now, being a serial entrepreneur myself, I know that it takes a good dose of naivete to build any business. People often say that if founders really knew how hard the journey ahead would be, they would never get started. So a bit of delusion is required. But that's true even when the goals of the business are grounded and realistic. When they're way outside the capabilities of the founder, and the founder brushes that concern off with something like, "We'll figure it out," well, the universe just doesn't work that way. Good entrepreneurs are information sponges. They know they are wrong about some critical things that might sink their business, and so they are constantly seeking information to prove themselves wrong so that they can learn and improve their business. It might seem like a stretch to call bad entrepreneurship an unintentional rug, but by now there is so much information available about how to be good at starting businesses, and so much of it is focused around things like customer development and basically figuring out where you're wrong and iterating towards success, that a founder who ignores all of that is inexcusably negligent. Like someone who wants to start driving but doesn't bother to learn it. This is also fairly easy to spot. If the founders aren't eager to take in contrarian perspectives, that's a sign they're probably running a pretend business, deliberately or not. If you don't actually set out to build anything, then it should be no surprise that at the end of the project, you won't have built anything. A large proportion of projects in the NFT space have adopted very bad habits that emerged during the Ponzi bubble bonanza from the summer 2021 to early 2022. Some are still launching today, copying these empty, unproductive ideas that create a make-believe project without substance. Learning how to recognize those empty projects, and particularly how NFT projects are often misleading about their value, is a whole topic by itself. In fact, I've made another video about this, which you can find here. That's it for today. GM and good luck.